Welcome to the Kaha Club. Roll up. Let's take a rip. Never tell you the world is yours. Yeah, bish. And boom! I'm back. Kyle High Club. This will be MMA episode number 17. So starting to take over and just be an MMA podcast, I guess, and not the regular bullshit talking about bullshit podcasts, which I will have an episode of that hopefully in the next couple days, maybe even today, because I keep seeing a bunch of shit on Twitter and things like that not getting my blood boiling, but they're definitely they make my brain hurt because people can't see the other side of anything, and it's dumbfound. I'm just dumbfounded by people's lack of compassion for people that don't see the world the way they see the world, and vice versa. So hopefully I have another episode out next couple days, if not today. Probably not today. I'm lazy. But for this MMA podcast, I'll be talking about the upcoming UFC fights, UFC Fight Night. What number is it? It doesn't even tell me. And I didn't write it down. Got UFC Fight Night 152. Coming out of the Blue Cross Arena in Rochester, New York. This will be Saturday, May 18th, 2019, of course. The main card and prelims will be on ESPN+. Prelims starting at 5 p.m. Eastern. And the main card will be starting at 8 p.m. Eastern. And per usual, I believe all the ESPN+ cards you can always watch right after or during, or half hour before and start from the beginning, so you can watch it whenever you want, but that's when they show live. Prelims 5 Eastern and main card 8 Eastern. That being said, before I actually start getting into the fights, just an update if you haven't been made aware or you haven't been following. The co-main event for this card between Rafael Dos Anjos and Kevin Lee was supposed to be Magny, who I believe was ranked 12th, versus Vincent Luque, who was ranked 15th. And that was a welterweight bout, but Magny had to drop out. Originally, there was no reason why he had to drop out, but then he came out himself and said that it was because of a failed drug test. His sample, a couple weeks ago, I think it was like May 5th, I want to say, came back positive for a banned substance that is banned by USADA. So he's not able to compete until they figure out what happens and they go through the judicial process and either clear him or give him a suspension. And from what I've read, he tested positive for a SARM, S-A-R-M is the acronym. I forget off the top of my head what it means, which I guess that's good that I have a computer right in front of me. So that's a selective androgen receptor modulators, which I don't even know what that means. So it builds muscle and burns fat is the same as steroids, but it will do without any effects. So it has side effects. And I think Magny's claiming he doesn't knowingly know how this came to his body. He thinks it comes from a supplement and maybe a non-improved supplement by USADA. I've seen a bunch of other fighters comment on this, on Twitter and stuff, saying it's fucking bullshit. If you're taking supplements that aren't on the pre-approved list, what are you doing? They give you a list of hundreds of supplements that you're able to take and that are pre-approved and should cause no problems. They've been third-party tests and that sort of nature. So if you're using anything outside the list, and at least the fight, I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm not a fighter myself. I just talk about the fights. I like watching them, and I like talking about them. But from other fighters, and fighters that are clean and have been consistently clean throughout their career, and I trust that they're clean fighters and clean athletes. They think it's fucking bullshit. Why are you even taking things that are outside the approved list? Why are you even risking the chance of this happening? You're risking the chance of not getting a paycheck, not being able to pay your trainers and your strength and conditioning program and any scientific people you have in the background that are doing all this stuff, helping you out day to day. Now they're not going to get paid because, you want to take a chance on taking something from GNC, and that hasn't been pre-approved and third-party tested by USADA or another company. So I get that point. It's kind of willful ignorance or negligence, and the fact that anybody would take anything outside of that pre-approved list is kind of fishy, and it's almost like, well, you're either an idiot or you're cheating. Neither one, fuck you. But the card goes on, so that bout is now not co-main event since Magny dropped out. They did find a new opponent for Vincent Luque, a guy named Derek Krantz. What's his nickname? He had a cool nickname. Let me see. Derek D-Rock Krantz. As far as I believe, he's been trying to get his UFC shot for some time now. He's 22-10 in his career, so those two are matched up, and they've been moved down to the third fight of the main card. So if you start from the very first fight, not the main event, but the opener of the main card, then there's Charles Oliveira, Nik Lentz, and then Derek Krantz versus Vincent Luque. And then Antonio Carlos Jr. versus Ian Heinisch has been moved up to the co-main, and Megan Anderson versus Felicia Spencer has moved up a spot as well. So yeah, those are the differences as far as Magny dropping out. And yeah, let's get into the actual fights now. First fight of the night is between Julio Arce versus Julian Juicy J. Erosa. Arce is 15-3 his career. Erosa is 22-8. This will be 145 featherweight bout. Arce is 29 years old. He's currently 2-1 in the UFC. He is from Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, so he's a 1 week 5, where he went from there. He actually lost his last fight versus Shaman Moraes, who we saw a couple weeks ago fight and looked solid. And Julio is a former 3-time Ring of the Cage champion. So he's had championship experience in the lower levels. And he's fought a decent guy in Shaman Moraes. He lost by decision, but it's believed that, and at least as far as I've seen Julio, he's a decent fighter and should be on the come up. Whereas Julian Erosa's second stint in the UFC, he's 29 years old, as I said before. His nickname's Juicy J. It's a cool nickname, but 1-4 in the UFC. He's 0-2 since he's been back the second time. And, I like his fighting style. He's long, he's tall, especially for the featherweight division, 145 pounds. He's 6'1". He'll have a 4.5 reach advantage in this fight and 4-inch height advantage as well. Or no, even more. Goddamn. He's 5'7", so he's got a 6-inch reach advantage, so half a foot their height advantage. Julian does have 10 finishes by TKO or knockout and 9 by submission this pass. So he's finished 19 of his 22 wins. As far as betting odds, odds are currently at Julio Arce is a -700 favorite and Julian Erosa's +500 currently. I feel like Arce is the more skilled fighter, more tougher fighter. The only disadvantage is obviously the reach and height, but I think he'll probably still get it done. And I believe I picked him to win this fight in a parlay that I actually bet last night. Let me look at that real quick before I keep going any further. I believe I submitted a 4-way parlay. I don't remember who the people were, though. So let me try to pull that up right quick. This shit's being done. Open bets, you motherfucker. Yeah, so I had him in a four-way parlay. Okay, yep, I remember now who they all are. All right, so that's basically it for the first fight. That's the opener on the prelims, ESPN Plus, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central, which is where I'm at. Second fight of the night was between Zak Cummings and Trevin Giles, not sure how you say it. Zak is 22-6 in his career, while Trevin is undefeated, 11-0. So we'll be at the 185 middleweight division. Zak Cummings is 34 years old. He's 7-3 in the UFC. He won his last fight versus Trevor Smith back in December of last year. He's had 5 finishes by TKO or knockout and 11 by submission. As far as Trevin, the problem Giles, as I said, he's undefeated, 11-0 in his pro MMA career. He's only 26 years old, too. And currently 2-0 in the UFC by 2 TKOs or knockouts, 2 finishes, and both his wins in the UFC. As far as his overall career, he's finished 10 out of his 11 wins, 5 by TKO or knockout, and 5 by submission. As far as betting odds, Zak Cummings is plus 135 underdog and Trevin Giles minus 155 favorite. I'm not sure how to bet this fight. I know Zak Cummings is a solid veteran in the sport. As I say, 7-3 in the UFC, so he's had 10 fights in the UFC. But he'll be facing an up-and-comer with a lot of confidence, a guy that's started 2-0 in the UFC, still undefeated, still hasn't tasted defeat. And is probably the more athletic. He's the younger, probably be faster, stronger. Maybe not stronger. Zak Cummings might have that adult, dad strength. I don't even know if he's his dad, but he's got that dad bod. So if and I guess I was going to say, if you know anything about these guys, but I'm supposed to be the one that's supposed to know. So maybe she'll watch a little tape on Giles and see how he is, see what his skill set is like, and if he, I think he'll probably end up getting the win, even though I haven't seen what he fights like, but I'm just assuming, and I think he might pull it out, so that's why he's the favorite. But wouldn't surprise me if Zak Cummings won. As far as the next fight is between Patrick Cummins, who's 10-6 in his pro career, versus Ed Short Fuse Herman, who's 24-14. This will be a light heavyweight division. Currently, Patrick Cummins is minus 250 favorite, and Ed Short Fuse Herman is plus 200 underdog. Pat Durkin Cummins is 38 years old. He trains out of Rain MMA. He's 6-6 overall in the UFC, and currently on a 2-fight losing streak versus Misha Serkinov and Corey Anderson. So yes, he's on a 2-fight losing streak, but he lost first two ranked guys, and I don't know if Misha Serkinov is ranked anymore, but I know Corey Anderson is. Maybe I can look that up right quick. UFC rankings, bitch. What's this, 205? Yeah, 205. Okay, so yeah, Misha Serkinov's still 14th, Corey Anderson 8th. So while Pat Cummings is on a 2-fight losing streak, he lost first 2 guys in the top 15. Before that, he beat Gian Vellante and Jan Blachowicz, who's number 6. So he's a solid fighter, although he does have 6 losses in the UFC out of 12 fights. He's 6-6. He's had 4 finishes by TKO or knockout, but he's also been finished 4 times by TKO or knockout. And he's 2-1 as far as submissions go. As far as Ed Short Fuse Herman, he is also 38 years old. He was the Ultimate Fighter 3 runner-up, which is just insane, so he's been around forever. He too is also 500 in the UFC, but at 10-10. He's had 6 wins by TKO or knockout, 3 losses by TKO or knockout, 14 submission victories, 6 submission losses. So he's finished 20 of his 24 wins. So if he gets a win more than likely it's got to be the other guy being finished. But Pat Cummins is as tough as they come. So I would definitely favor Pat Cummins in this fight just because, I mean, they're both veterans, and Herman's actually been in the UFC longer, has a longer history of fighting. But I think Pat is a more veteran, more, I was going to say more seasoned fighter, but he's not. I'd say he's a fresher fighter at 38 years old then. I'll say that. And so I'd probably give him the nod. I'm not going to place a bet on that fight or put him in a parlay because I'm not 100% confident. I only do parlays if I'm 100% confident this guy's going to win. And sometimes maybe even 90% because I parlayed the main event into my 4-way parlay because I'm pretty confident on how the main event's going to go. But I'm not 100%. I'd say about 75. But as far as the next fight, we got Mike Trizano, who's 9-0, undefeated, versus Grant Dawson, who's 13-1. This will be at the 145 featherweight division. Mike, the Lone Wolf Trizano, is 27 years old. He's Ultimate Fighter 27 winner, and he also won his debut versus Luis Violet Ross Pena. We saw a fight, I guess, probably a month ago now, who's really solid MMA fighter, very long and lengthy and unorthodox and very crafty in his movement. Mike Trizano's had finished 4 of his 9 wins, 2 by TKO or knockout, 2 by submission. As far as Grant KGD Dawson, he's 25 years old, Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series Season 1 Week 6 alum. He won that bout. He won his debut versus Julian Juicy J. Rosa, who I talked about earlier. And he's currently on a 4-fight winning streak. And he's finished 12 of his 13 wins, 3 by TKO or knockout, and 9 by submission. So this will be a very interesting fight. I don't know how, which way this one go. It's between 2 up-and-coming fighters, 2 young fighters. Trizano will have a 1-inch height advantage, but Dawson will have a 1-inch reach advantage. So Grant Dawson does switch his stances a bunch, and whereas Trizano is orthodox. As far as the rest of the numbers, they're all pretty much the same, except Dawson likes to go for takedowns. And yeah, we'll see how this fight turns out. It should be a brawler. But as far as betting odds, Trizano's minus 130 favorite and Dawson's plus 110. I might put a bet on Dawson just because I like the fact that he goes for the takedowns and likes to establish this wrestling game. And if you can decide where the fight's going to take place, a lot of time that decides the winner. Either you have a good stand-up game and you just have amazing takedown defense, and so you keep the fight standing where you want, or you just have a great wrestling game and you can take a guy down anytime you want and dictate where the fight takes place. Or you're good at both and you just switch back and forth to decide, what you want to do, like a Cain Velasquez almost. So that should be a very interesting fight as far as the prelims go. The next fight is between Danny Roberts and Michael. It's either Michael or Michel Perriere. Definitely butchered that name, so my apologies. Danny Roberts is 16-4. Michel is 22-9. This will be a welterweight 170 pound division fight. Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts is 31 years old, 5-3 in the UFC. He actually lost his last fight versus Claudio Silva by round 3 armbar back in March of this year. And while he is 5-3 in the UFC, he doesn't really have any significant wins over, big name guys or even guys that, although I'm not the, most balls deep into UFC and MMA, I have been doing, this is now my 17th episode, and I'm not talking just about main events or the co-main or the big name guys. And mainly most of the time I spent talking about guys that either I haven't even heard of or most, I'd say all mainstream MMA UFC fans haven't heard of. And Robert still hasn't beat any guy that I've heard of. I'm not saying I'm an expert or I know everybody on the roster, but I think I've been doing these since the beginning. I don't even remember. What was my first What was my first MMA card podcast? Like, which one was that? I don't even know if I can look right now, can I? I'm going to look real quick. I'm sorry. Just stay with me. It won't take too long. Just go to the website, KyleHyattClub.com. It's right there if it wants to load, you dumb cunt. You dumb cunt. Loading. Yo, why is this being so slow? Wow, okay, so you're just gonna do me like this? So it's being really slow, so fuck that. As far as Michel Pereira, he's 22-9. Demolidor is his nickname. He's 25 years old. He'll be making his UFC debut, so again, Danny Roberts fighting somebody we've never heard of, a guy making his debut. So we'll see if either one of these guys can get a win here in the UFC in these prelims and, you know, potentially start to make a rise up the ranks. Michel is 9-1 as far as TKO or knockouts go. He's had 6 submission victories and 1 loss by submission in the past. Okay, so the first episode, MMA episode ever UFC 235, which was Bones versus Anthony Smith and Woodley versus Usman. That was a preview episode. That was back in beginning of February. So I've only been doing this for a couple months, but I've done 17 episodes now. Half of those have been preview episodes. Half have been actually watching the fights themselves. And neither of these guys have faced anybody that we've heard of. But it'll be nice that they're facing each other, and good luck, motherfuckers. As far as the next fight, we got Desmond Green versus Charles Air Jourdain. Desmond Green is 22-8 in his career. Jourdain is 9-1. This will be a 155 lightweight bout in the UFC. Desmond the Predator Green, and this guy looks like the Predator I said in one of my previous episodes, except he just cut all his dreads off, so he doesn't really look like the Predator anymore. You need to get a new nickname. But he's 29 years old, 33 in the UFC. But he did win his last fight versus Ross Pearson by round 1 knockout in March, which is pretty impressive. And he was the biggest betting favorite on that card, if I remember correctly, and made easy work of the veteran Ross Pearson, who is now since retired after that fight. As far as Charles Air Jourdain, he's 23 years old. He'll be making his UFC debut, and he's currently on a 4-fight winning streak. Out of his 9 wins, he's finished them all, 6 by TKO or knockout and 3 by submission. As far as Desmond Green, he's had 6 knockouts 6 knockout victories, 1 submission victory. He's lost twice by submission. As far as betting odds, Desmond Green is my 700 favorite, while Charles Jourdain is plus 500 currently. That's at this moment. It's about midday Thursday. So those lines will change, because when I first wrote it down, Desmond Green was only minus 550. Now he's minus 700. So things change rapidly. I believe I wrote these down yesterday. So although he's a huge betting favorite, it should still be a good fight, I believe. I feel like I've heard of Charles Air Jourdain, even though he is making his UFC debut. But he's got to be a solid guy they're putting up against Desmond Green, who just starched Ross Pearson. You know, disposed of him pretty easily, and now they're putting him up against a very talented guy in Green. As far as the prelims, finishing out the prelims, the featured prelim bout of the evening is between Aspen Ladd, who's undefeated at 7-0, versus Sijara Eubanks. This will be the women's bantamweight division. From what I saw earlier, they had, Aspen Ladd is ranked 6th, and Sijara Eubanks is ranked 15th currently at 5-2. Aspen Ladd is 24 years old, currently undefeated, 2-0 in the UFC. And her wins were versus Tanya Evinger by first-round knockout, who's a solid UFC fighter and former Invicta champ. And, she fight? Oh, yeah, Lena Landsberg, she also knocked out in the second round. She's had 2 UFC wins, 2 knockouts. And she also beat her opponent, Sijara Eubanks, at Invicta FC 21 back in January 2017. So they two have fought before, and Aspen Ladd got the better of her, so we'll see how this one turns out. Sijara Sarge Eubanks is 34 years old. She's currently 3-0 in the UFC on a 3-fight winning streak, and out of her 5 wins, she's finished 2 of them by TKO or knockout. As far as betting odds, Aspen Ladd's -300 and Sijara Eubanks is +240, and those odds haven't moved an inch since I wrote them down. I haven't bet on that fight. I don't know if I will. Might be worth putting Aspen Ladd in a parlay bet with some other people that you think might win, just because she's beat her in the past, even though both are undefeated in the UFC, and obviously have gotten better since then. Feel like if you beat an opponent in the past, that should give you confidence that you can do it again, but that can also motivate the person that lost, thinking, oh, okay, I've seen what they have before, so I know how, what I did last time didn't work, now I know how to make an adjustments. Or it just gives you that extra motivation to work even harder. Whereas the other person who beat you, they might feel a little more relaxed, like, oh, I already beat this guy. Like, I don't even have to train to beat him again. I don't really believe that, but yeah. We'll see how the fight goes as itself. Just for right now, I'm going to take a little break just to split the episodes up here, just so I can stop the recording, insert the fucking ad here, and then I'll talk about the main card. But I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to stop the recording and get right back in the main card. Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? I know I did before I started this. I had tons of questions that I didn't have the answers to. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all the apps people like to listen to? How do I make money off of it? Really, and all these answers were simply answered by Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use, and I cannot specify that enough. It is so easy. Especially for somebody like me. I'm lazy. Although I am tech savvy and I can do all this manually myself, I don't want to. So it's great. And now Anchor can match you up with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. So that means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. And as people listen to this ad and listen to my podcast, I will get more and more money to this, and hopefully maybe be able to be self-efficient with this. So if you always wanted to start a podcast and make money, go to anchor.fm/start. It's anchor.fm/start to join me and a diverse community of podcasters already use Anchors. And can't wait to hear your podcast. Okay, and so for the main card action, again, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central, it'll be on ESPN Plus as well. The first fight coming off the main card to get us started is between Davi Ramos and Austin Hubbard. Davi Ramos is 9-2 in his career. He's 24 years old. That is not him, never mind. Davi Tasmanian Devil Ramos is 32 years old, 3-1 in the UFC. He's currently on a 3-fight win streak, all of them by rear naked chokes. He won his last versus John Gunther in November 18th by rear naked choke. He's got 1 win by TKO or knockout and 7 by submission. So Ramos definitely likes to go for the submissions, being from Brazil. I'm assuming he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. As far as Austin Hubbard, he's 10-2 in his career. He's 27 years old and will be making his UFC debut in this fight versus the Tasmanian Devil. He is former LFA champion. He trains with Elevation Fight Team out of Denver, Colorado. Out of his 10 wins, he's finished 6 of them in the past, 3 by submission and 3 by TKO or knockout. As far as betting odds, Ramos is minus 500 favorite, and Austin Hubbard's plus 380 currently. So we'll see how this ends up playing out. Hubbard will have a 4-inch height advantage, but only a 1-inch reach advantage. So the reach is the height advantage is kind of mitigated by Ramos having long arms for a short stature. Not too many stats for Hubbard because he's making his UFC debut. So both fighters are orthodox, and we'll see how they come out versus each other. So it'll be an interesting opener to the main card. The next fight, which I'm surprised this isn't higher on the bout or higher on the list of fights, because these are two, at least you follow somewhat. You've heard at least of both these guys. One of them is the submission king of the UFC, Charles Dobrox Oliveira, 26-8 currently, number 14 in the 155 stacked lightweight division, and I believe he holds the UFC record for most submission victories. And even though he's 14, he still deserves more respect, in my opinion. But he's 29 years old still. He's 14-8 in the UFC, but he is on a 4-fight win streak, all by chokes. I believe they were rear naked, guillotine, and Darce chokes, if I remember correctly. And he's had 18 submission victories in his overall MMA career. I believe he's only had, but he's had 12 or 13 submission victories in the UFC. So obviously getting some of those outside of the UFC. I wonder if I can look this up. Individual with most submission victories in UFC. That's a long worded thing, but it should come up. Okay, come on, just tell me. It doesn't just tell me, which is dumb, but whatever. I know for a fact that he has had the most. I don't know the exact number, though. And Dobrox will be fighting versus Nik Lentz. And Nik Lentz is 39-2 in his overall professional MMA career. He's currently 34 years old, trains with American Top Team. He's 14-6-1 in the UFC. And he's actually currently on a 2-fight winning streak versus Scott Holzman, who he faced back in February of this year, and Gray Maynard, who he faced October of last year. And he actually fought Carlos Oliveira in the past, in May 2015, and lost by guillotine in the 3rd round. As far as betting odds, Oliveira is minus 360 favorite, and Nik Lentz is plus 280. I feel pretty confident that Oliveira has beaten Nik Lentz in the past, and he's really riding high off 4 straight submission choke victories. Letting my cat in again because she's meowing. Just apologize for that noise disturbance, but so I've gone ahead and parlayed Charles Oliveira into my 4-way parlay as well. So I've got him and Julio Arce so far, and I'll name the next 2 once I get to those fights. But nonetheless, will be an interesting fight. Both guys are UFC veterans. Both guys have seen mostly everything in the cage, and it should be an exciting bout to watch. Oliveira will have a 2-inch height advantage and a 6-inch reach advantage. And although he is a submission expert, he is no slouch on the feet. And he might be more skilled than Lentz, but Lentz likes to make it a brawl. So Oliveira will most likely look to keep his reach and distance while they're on the feet, and then if things get close, try to take it to the ground and look for that sub. So it's a very interesting fight to second fight of the main card. As I said, I wish it was a little higher, but whatever. And then the next fight, this fight was originally the co-main, but then as I discussed before, Magny dropped out because of PD violation. So now instead of Neil Magny versus Vincent Luque, the co-main is now Derek D-Rock Krantz versus Vincent Luque in the third fight of the main card. Fourth if you're going from the main event down. Third if you're going from the prelim opener up, if that makes sense. Where did I put the notes? See, I started to do my notes before this was announced, so it's all over the place, kind of. It's just out of order. Let me find it. Magny dropped out, replaced by Derek D-Rock Krantz, who's 22-10 in his overall career. He'll be making his UFC debut on 3 or 4 days' notice. So good luck. He is former LFC and LFA champ. He's had 9 victories by TKO or knockout and 11 by submission. And he's currently 31 years old. He has lost twice by knockout or TKO and 5 times by submission in the past. As far as Vincent, the Silent Assassin Luque, he's 27 years old, trains with the Black Zillions. He's currently 8-2 in the UFC. It was very impressive. I believe, didn't he have a number by his name? Yeah, he's ranked 15th in the 170 welterweight division as well. He's 15-6-1 overall in his career. He's currently riding a 4-fight win streak, and 3 of them by TKO or knockout. And all those wins, those 4 straight wins in order have been, order from last fight to fight before, versus Brian Barberena, Jalen Turner, Chad LaPrice, and Nico Price. All guys that are, they're not, Jalen Turner has a potential to be a stud, so does Nico Price, but currently all these guys are just, not just, but they're UFC, roster stablemates. They are on the UFC roster for sure, and most likely whenever their contracts run up, they'll be given another contract, or at least they'll negotiate towards another one. They'll have some value to add. And Vincent has had 8 wins by knockout or TKO out of his 15 and 6 by submission. He's finished 14 of his 15 wins. He has lost twice by submission. As far as betting odds, I don't see any currently on the website. Let me see if I can. I don't see any on the SportsCenter ESPN website currently, but let's see if I can pull it up on the betting website I use. Maybe they got it up there already. And yes, they do. Cool. Currently, Vincent Luque is minus 614 and Derek Krantz at plus 414. So that is that. The next fight is between Megan Anderson and Felicia Spencer. Megan Anderson might be my favorite women's MMA fighter. And I haven't even seen her fight that much, but I don't know what it is. I mean, she's 6 feet tall, and she's just tatted all over her body. She's fucking beautiful. She's very attractive. Fucking rock hard abs, and she could kick my ass. But she's not bigger than me, but she's still tall. We would make some crazy freak athletes if we had babies. Even though she probably has more athletic ability than me. But I the reason I like her is because I watched her, and I didn't even know who she was. I watched her fight in Chicago versus Holly Holm, her UFC debut, where Holly Holm just wrestled the ground and kind of just, fucked up her striking game, which I've heard is legit. I haven't even really seen that much because her last fight she fought Kat Gonzano and head kicked her in her toe and ended up getting in Kat Zingano's eye, and she just couldn't continue. So I'm excited to actually see her fight this time. So that makes Megan 1-1 in the UFC. She's 29 years old. As I say, I won her last fight versus Kat Gonzano. She is a former Invicta FC champ, and she's finished 7 of her 9 professional victories, 5 by TKO or knockout, and 2 by submission. As far as Felicia Phenom Spencer, she's 6-0, undefeated so far in her professional career. She's 28 years old, making her UFC debut. And she is also a former Invicta champ. Her last fight was for the Invicta belt. So after getting that belt at 145 women's featherweight, this is the 145 division. She's coming to the UFC now. She's had 1 knockout victory in the past and 3 by submission. So see how that plays out. Megan Anderson is minus 180 favorite, and Felicia's plus 150. So it's kind of close there, but as I said, I'm a fan of Megan Anderson. I think she should have the technical edge and just experience edge as well. I haven't seen Felicia Spencer fight, and I even said recently I haven't even seen Megan Anderson fight a full fight yet. I've seen her fight a full fight versus Holm, but I haven't seen her fight a full fight of her style where she dictated the pace and the game and the strategy, so on and so forth. So I'm interested in this fight nonetheless, even though I said what I just said. I did pick Megan Anderson to win, and she is coupled in my 4-way parlay that I have. So yeah, the next fight of the night is the co-main event now between Antonio Carlos Jr. and Ian Heinisch. I'm not sure how you say it, but Antonio Carlos Jr. His nickname is Carl de Zapato, which means shoe face. And he said he doesn't like this new nickname, but one of his trainers, I guess, is famous for giving his guys nicknames. And, in the sport of MMA, kind of once a nickname sticks, it kind of just sticks. That's just how it is. I know for me, when I was playing baseball, I think it was my sophomore year. I think it was my sophomore year. I got hit with the line drive right in the face while playing third. It was a line drive, but it did skip off the ground and then hit me in the face. Broke 2 bones in my face. It was really nasty, really ugly. I didn't even want to go to school. Blah blah blah. But I still continued playing baseball, and still continued wanting to play. I didn't want to sit out, so in order to play, I had to wear this face mask, which is often the same face mask that you'll see collegiate softball. I was going to say performers, collegiate softball players wearing, especially the pitcher and infielders, because they're so close to the batter, and if you get hit in the face, it's going to hurt. But I had to wear that, and I liked wearing it. Some of my friends called me Hannibal Lecter. And while that's kind of a cool nickname, I didn't like it for the fact that my face was broken. I had to wear this fucking embarrassing mask. So I get it, as far as not liking your nickname. And people would just call me Porter. I didn't like that either. But it is what it is. Nicknames stick, and you just move on. And you're a fighter, so who gives a fuck? As far as Antonio Carlos Jr., he's 11-12. He's ranked number 12 at the 185 middleweight division. Yeah, middleweight. His nickname Shoeface. He's the Ultimate Fighter Brazil 1 champion. He's currently on a 5-fight winning streak. 6-2 overall in the UFC, and he's won out of his 11 pro victories and won 9 of them by submission. And he is currently 29 years old. As far as in the Hurricane Heinisch, he's 30 years old, 1-0 in the UFC. He's former LFA champ. And he's finished 6 of his 12 wins, so he's finished half of them, 4 by TKO or knockout and 2 by submission. And his only loss is by submission. Carlos Jr. will have a 2-inch height advantage and a 7-inch reach advantage. So that'll be huge for him. Yeah, he has fucking super long arms now that I'm seeing, his silhouette or whatever, his fighter profile picture on the ESPN website. As far as betting odds, Antonio Carlos Jr. is minus 180, whereas Ian Heinisch is plus 150. Those odds have kind of stayed around that range there, and I expect them to stay the same. Antonio Carlos is ranked at 12, whereas Heinisch is not. But again, they're not going to put a guy with only one, fight in his career versus a ranked guy. So, Ian is a solid fighter, so we'll see how this ends up playing out. Now that they're in the co-main spot, so both guys will have a good will have a good chance to make a case for being, legit and furthering their careers. And of course, co-main, guess where that leads us? The main event, motherfucker. Of course, you got RDA, Rafael Dos Anjos versus Kevin the Motown Phenom Lee. RDA is 34 currently. He made his UFC debut all the way back at UFC 91. And here he is now, still competing, even though he's still only 34. He's competing after UFC 237 just took place. He's 17-9 in his UFC career. And he's actually on a 2-fight losing streak, so trying to go on a winning streak here. And those 2 losses were first current 170 champ Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington, 2 solid wrestlers that kind of just took him down and beat him up for 5 rounds, and he couldn't do anything. Of course, RDA is a former 155 lightweight champ, but that weight cut was kind of too hard for him, and I think he's one of these guys that's a tweener. He's a guy that's in between 155 and 170. 155 is too small, and 170 is kind of perfect as far as him cutting, but the guys at 170 are too big because they're cutting down from 200 and 190 and shit. Guys like Kamaru Usman, that's just not a fair fight. He's just so much bigger than him, so much stronger and more physical. So if there ever was a 165 division implemented, it'd be perfect for a guy like RDA, who's just kind of in between. While he is number 3 in this division, which is kind of surprising considering he has two straight losses. They've had to update that since then, right? So this welterweight, he's still number 3, but both guys he's lost to are ranked above him, so I guess it makes sense. Kevin Lee was ranked number 7 in the lightweight division, and of course he's moving up to 170 for this fight. He hasn't said whether this move is permanent. He said he might go back and forth and fight both divisions, but I think it's just dumb as far as your career and as far as moving up the rankings and the ladder, and trying to get that belt, which I feel should always be the goal if you're a fighter, especially if you're in the top 15. But yeah, Kevin Lee's 17-4, 10-4 in the UFC, so a lot of losses came in the UFC. He lost his last bout versus Oliveira, which was at 155 main event match, 5 rounds back in December of 18 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I was in Milwaukee because I was motherfucking there. I was like 10 rows away from the fucking cage, and I was pretty sick. But he got dominated that entire fight. Yeah, like Quinto said, I basically bitched him out the division, made him go up to 170, and he struggled with the wrestling ability of Ali Quinto, which I can understand because Ali Quinto's a fucking beast on the ground. He stopped Khabib from taking him down on a couple of days' notice. So while I think Lee won't have much traction at 170 as far as getting up to the belt, I don't think he'll be able to beat guys. He won't even be able to contend with guys like Woodley and Usman. And those are the top 2 guys right now. And maybe not even a guy in Colby Covington or Ben Askren. I see him losing versus Masvidal. I see him losing versus Till, Wonderboy, Pettis, Santiago Ponzinibbio, Robbie Lawler, Leon Edwards, Damian Maia. I could see him beating Neil Magny, but not Eliseo dos Santos. So I think it's risky going up a division, but he is fighting a number 3 guy, and I'm picking him to win because RDA has had struggles with wrestlers in the past 2 fights, and guess what? You're getting another wrestler. I'm hoping RDA has learned from that and made some good, a lot of adjustments as far as his takedown defense and his bottom game on the ground. But you can only do so much in so little time when a guy's been wrestling his entire life. So because of that, I'm actually pretty confident that Lee will actually get this victory, even though I just kind of talk some shit about him. I think the fact that RDA struggled with wrestlers in the past, I think that same trend is going to continue. So I actually bet Kevin Lee to win this fight, and actually I'm so confident in him winning, I parlayed him into my 4-way parlay, which now includes Julio Arce beating Julian Juicy J. Rosa, It includes Charles Oliveira beating Nik Lentz, Megan Anderson beating Felicia Spencer, and Kevin Lee beating RDA in the main event. Kind of risky, and a lot of people say you're a fucking idiot, but well, no, look like an idiot when I get some money. So that's that. And yeah, I mean, I hope RDA doesn't lose. I'm a big fan of RDA, and I want him to, eventually maybe get at least get a shot at that 170 belt. But I think Lee's going to stop that in its tracks here. And as far as, that's really all I have as far as these fights go. I do have a couple news items here that I have in my notes. I have it on my phone notes, but I forgot to write them down. But it doesn't matter, because I do whatever the fuck I want. No bosses in this forum, in this format. That's all that really matters. We just get to do whatever the fuck we want. And, good shit will happen. As long as you're nice to other people and you treat other people kindly. But if you watched the UFC 237 fights that happened this past weekend, if you watched the Anderson Silva fight versus Jared Cannonier, it looked like he might have tore his knee or something. He definitely hurt his knee, but the word is Silva will not be having surgery. He's just going to do a lot of physical therapy and a lot of rehab to get his knee back, and he hopes to be in the cage again. There's no timetable for his return. I'm assuming it's going to take a little while. But it's cool to hear that it won't need surgery, because surgery, and especially at 44 years old, and a guy that relies on his movement and his his slipping defense and things like that. I think that's really great to hear he doesn't need surgery. So stoked about that. I don't know how stoked I am about a 44 to 45 to 46-year-old fighting professionally in the UFC, but if anyone can do it, it's Anderson Silva. And I hope he can get back in there and put on another great performance for us. The last item I have written down is Max Holloway versus Frankie Edgar. Looks like that's going to be happening in late July in Edmonton. Is that... excuse me. Is that UFC 240? Not yet sure. Holloway versus Edgar. Okay, yeah, so that's UFC 240. That'll be taking place July 27th from Edmonton. Is it Edmonton, Ontario? I don't even know. Excuse me for not knowing. 240. Okay, 240. Yep. Well, it's Edmonton, Canada. Well, whatever. Doesn't matter. So, that's cool. I've seen a lot of people talk about how Frankie Edgar doesn't deserve this fight. His last fight he had was versus Brian Ortega, and he lost, and that was almost 2 years ago now. And I made the case, and especially my preview and recap episode of UFC 237 fights, that Volkanovski should have the next shot, and I really think he should, considering he's on a 17 winning streak or whatever it is, whereas Frankie Edgar is coming off a brutal TKO or knockout loss, not a TKO loss. But I'm okay with it. I don't like it because Volkanovski's clearly earned the number one contender spot, and he's now currently ranked the number one contender. And he didn't dominate Aldo, but he won all 3 rounds easily, so I guess that is dominating. So I don't know. I feel like they're just giving Max Holloway an easy it's not an easy W, but they're basically giving him a win, after his 155 loss to Poirier. Just trying to get him back in there and remind everyone that he's the best 145er of all time. I think Volkanovski would have been a more interesting fight and what the fans wanted, but Frankie Edgar is a bigger name. It'll sell more pay-per-views as far as 240 goes, especially since they had the 240, and that's the first fight that's been announced on it. There's no prelims, no early prelims announced for that card yet. It's not till July, end of July, but that's 2 months. People need to start training now for that, pretty much. So they need to get that shit together. So I get why they did it. Edgar kind of risked his number one contention spot at the time versus Ortega and got fucking knocked out. I mean, that's just the name of the game, but it just doesn't make logical sense. The guy that got knocked out and hasn't fought in over a year is now getting a title shot over really anybody, and especially over a guy that's fought 3 or 4 times since then and has won 17 in a row. So I don't know. But I get what the UFC is doing. And, you can't hate Frankie Edgar. He's a legend. He'll probably be a UFC Hall of Famer one day. And, honestly, he'll be his last title shot before he rides off in the sunset. I don't even know how old Frankie Edgar is. He's 37, so yeah, he's getting up there. He only has a fight or 2 left, so I say, get this fight, have this one last title shot, most likely lose, and take it from there, man. Maybe have 1 or 2 shots versus a named guy and ride off in the sunset as a legend. So I get it. I don't like it as far as logic, as far as just fighting goes, as far as just what happens in the octagon, but it's a business at the end of the day, and especially since UFC sold to whatever company they sold to, and now that they're partnered with ESPN, it's all about the money and the numbers now. So it is what it is. I'll still watch the fights. I don't care, but and this will give Volkanovski some time to rest, and hopefully he gets the next shot at the title maybe later in the year. This fight will be in July, so maybe he'll get a shot in October, September, or something like that, and won't have to fight again, which he shouldn't have to fight again to get another shot. So yeah, that's really all I got as far as today. I think on the last episode I said that Anthony Pettis versus Nate Diaz will happen, so that's pretty cool. Let's see if there's any news right now. We got some outlier news, some up and coming prospect news, making UFC debut thing, stuff here and there, but nothing big. So I'm just gonna we'll go ahead and shut it down, and I look forward to these fights coming up, and hopefully I'll have another just a regular Kyle High episode talking about bullshit in the next couple days, if not today. And yeah, thank you for those that are listening. If you like what I'm doing, check out the website, kylehighclub.com. Of course, check out the podcast that you're literally listening to, if you're listening. It's on Apple Podcasts. It's on Google. It's not on Spotify yet, but I'll probably get it on Spotify. It's on this app called Anchor that I use to record and, put all these clips together and things like that. If you ever want to, I don't know, I was going to say if you want to donate, but why the fuck would you want to donate? But if you ever want to get in contact with me, if you know who I am, just fucking get in contact with me. If you don't, I do have an email address that you can get in contact with. It is kylehighclub420@gmail.com. If you have any suggestions or anything like that, or you'd like to give me $100 million to do this for the rest of my life, that'd be awesome. But that being said, love all you guys if you do or don't listen, and yeah, talk to you soon. Bye.